My stepdaughter used me as an ATM for 10 years, and I paid $75,000 for college and wedding. But when I saw the announcement, and my name was not there, I canceled everything 30 days before the event and kicked them out. Her biological father, who never paid child support, was left broken. I'm 42 years old. I work in finance and make pretty good money. And I need to tell this story because I basically just ended a 10-year relationship in the most nuclear way possible. And honestly, I don't regret it one bit. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I met Jennifer about a decade ago, she had a daughter, Amanda, who was around 12 at the time, and from day one she made it clear they came as a package deal. It didn't bother me at all. I mean, I never had kids of my own, and the idea of being a father figure seemed fine to me. Jennifer was going through a complicated divorce with Christopher, Amanda's biological father, and when I say complicated, I mean the guy was a total mess. One of those dads who shows up when it's convenient and disappears for months without a trace. At first, everything was pretty normal. You know, dates, getting to know each other, that kind of thing. Jennifer didn't work. She had left her job years ago to take care of Amanda and never went back to look for work. But honestly, that didn't worry me much because I made enough for all three of us. About a year into dating, Jennifer and Amanda moved into my house. I have a nice house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but comfortable, with 4 bedrooms, and it seemed natural for them to live with me. Amanda was a good kid back then, got good grades, was polite, and I really started seeing her as my daughter. Christopher kept being a ghost. He'd appear every 3 or 4 months, take Amanda for a weekend, promise her the moon and stars, and then disappear again without paying a cent of child support. Jennifer had a court order for him to pay like $800 a month, but the guy never paid once. And eventually Jennifer got tired of pursuing him legally because she said it wasn't worth the stress. I became the provider of everything, literally everything. I paid the mortgage, utilities, food, clothes, vacations, internet, phones, absolutely every expense you can imagine. Jennifer had access to one of my credit cards for emergencies and day-to-day expenses, and Amanda never had to worry about anything. When she turned 16, I paid for driving lessons and then bought her a used Honda Civic in good condition, like a 2015, that cost about $12,000. She was happy, gave me a huge hug, and called me the best stepdad in the world. I felt good, you know? Like I was doing something important. Christopher showed up that day, by the way, for Amanda's birthday, gave her a card with $50 inside, and Amanda acted like he had given her a Ferrari. That bothered me a bit, but I let it go because, well, he's her biological dad, and I guess blood ties are strong or whatever. The years went by, and the dynamic stayed the same. I worked, paid for everything, and Jennifer took care of the house. Although honestly, many times I felt like she didn't do much more than watch TV and talk on the phone with her friends. Amanda kept growing, and the time came to think about college. She wanted to go to a state university that was about 2 hours away. Nothing crazy. And I told her that of course I would support her. Tuition, housing, books, all of that I paid for. Christopher didn't contribute anything, zero. He didn't even call to ask how Amanda was doing in college. I spent approximately $40,000 on Amanda's 4 years of college. Maybe a bit more if I count all the extras, like when her car broke down and I had to pay for repairs. Or when she needed money to go out with her friends, or when she wanted to go on spring break to Cancun with her roommates. I basically never said no to anything, because I felt it was my responsibility as her father figure to give her the opportunities she deserved. Amanda graduated last year, in May, and it was a nice day. The whole family went to the ceremony, including Christopher, who showed up with a new girlfriend and acted like proud dad of the year. Amanda ran to him after receiving her diploma, and they took like 1,000 photos together. I was standing there with Jennifer, clapping, and nobody asked us to take photos with Amanda until like half an hour later, almost as an afterthought. It bothered me, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want to ruin her day. After graduating, Amanda moved back in with us because she didn't have a job yet. She said she was looking, but the market was tough. And well, I believed her. Jennifer didn't work either. So basically, I was still supporting 2 adults besides myself. Everything exploded about 6 months ago. Amanda announced that her boyfriend, a guy named Jake, who she'd been dating for about 2 years, had proposed to her. We were all excited. I mean, Jake seemed like a good guy, had a stable job in it, and Amanda was happy. They immediately started planning the wedding, and Amanda asked me if I could help pay for some expenses. I told her, of course, that it would be an honor to contribute to her wedding, and she gave me another one of those huge hugs and told me I was the best. Days later, she sat me down in the living room with Jennifer, and they showed me an initial budget. They were planning a wedding for August 3rd, meaning in about 8 months, and the total budget was around $35,000. I was a bit surprised because it was a lot of money. But Amanda explained that the guest list was 250 people, and they wanted to do things right. With a nice venue, good food, DJ, professional photographer, the whole package. I asked who else was going to contribute financially, and Jennifer looked at me like I had said something offensive. She explained that Jake's parents didn't have much money, and Christopher obviously couldn't help because he was struggling financially. So basically, that left me. I took a deep breath and told them it was okay, that I would cover the wedding expenses. Amanda screamed with excitement and started making plans immediately. During the following weeks, everything was about the wedding. Jennifer and Amanda spent hours looking at dresses, online, trying cakes, visiting reception venues, and I just kept signing checks and giving my credit card whenever necessary. I put down a $5,000 deposit for the reception venue, another $2,000 for the photographer, $1,000, $500 for the DJ, and so on. One day, about a month after we started all these preparations, I asked Jennifer if I could invite some of my friends and coworkers to the wedding. She got weird and told me she'd have to ask Amanda because the guest list was already pretty full. I said I only wanted to invite about 20 people, which seemed reasonable to me considering I was paying for the whole wedding and there were 250 spots available. Jennifer said she'd talk to Amanda about it. 2 weeks went by and they didn't tell me anything about my guests. I assumed everything was fine because nobody told me otherwise. Then one day I was at work, and my friend Tyler, who I've worked with for years and who knows, Jennifer and Amanda, because we've done several things together like going to baseball games or having barbecues at my house, casually mentioned to me that he had received a wedding announcement from Amanda in the mail. I asked him what he meant by announcement, and he showed me a photo on his phone. It was one of those elegant cards announcing Amanda and Jake's wedding, with all the venue and date information, but it clearly said at the bottom that it was an announcement, not an invitation, and that a formal invitation would follow for selected guests. I froze. Tyler asked me if I already had my invitation, and I told him that I lived with them. Obviously, I was going to be at the wedding. He laughed and said, "Yeah, how silly." But something in his tone made me realize things weren't right. That night, I got home, and there was a pile of those wedding announcements on the dining room table. Jennifer was packing them into envelopes to mail them. I grabbed one and read it completely. At the top, where they usually put the names of the parents hosting the wedding, it clearly said Christopher Williams and Jennifer Torres invite you to the wedding of their daughter Amanda Williams to Jake Morrison. My name wasn't anywhere. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I asked Jennifer what that meant, and she didn't even look up. Kept sticking stamps and told me that's how it was done traditionally, with the biological parents' names. I told her I had been more of a father to Amanda than Christopher for the last 10 years. That I had paid for her college, her car, and now was paying for her wedding, and that it was a huge disrespect that my name wasn't there. Jennifer sighed and told me not to be dramatic, that it was just a formality. I asked her about my 20 guests, and she looked at me uncomfortably. She told me that Amanda and Jake had to make cuts to the list because there were so many important people to invite from both families, and unfortunately, my friends and coworkers hadn't made the cut. I stared at her in disbelief. I asked her how it was. Possible there wasn't room for 20 people when the wedding was for 250, and she explained that between Christopher's extended family, Jennifer's family, Amanda's friends from college, Jake's coworkers, and all of Jake's parents' family, there simply wasn't space. I specifically asked if Christopher was going to bring guests, and she admitted yes, that he was going to bring his girlfriend and some of his friends, like 15 people total. I exploded. I yelled at her that it was a joke, that I was paying for the whole wedding and couldn't even invite my own friends while the absent father, who never gave a cent, was going to bring his new girlfriend and his buddies. Jennifer started crying and said I was being unfair, that Amanda wanted her biological father to feel included because he already felt bad about not being able to contribute financially. Amanda arrived at that moment and found us arguing. I asked her directly if it was true that none of my guests were going to be able to go to her wedding, and she stammered a bit before saying yes, that she was very sorry, but it was a complicated situation. I asked her how she could be so ungrateful when I had paid for every aspect of her life for 10 years, and she looked at me like I was the villain. She told me she never asked me to pay for anything, that I offered, and that now I couldn't use that to manipulate her. I was speechless. Jennifer defended her, saying she was right, that I had chosen to support them and now I couldn't collect favors. I went to my room and didn't talk to either of them for the rest of the night. The next few days were tense, but eventually things calmed down superficially. I kept paying for wedding stuff because I had already started and didn't want to be the guy who ruins his stepdaughter's wedding. Or whatever Amanda was to me at that point. One day, Amanda announced that Jake's parents wanted to invite us to dinner at their house so the families could get to know each other better before the interning wedding. We went one Friday night. It was a nice house in a neighborhood similar to mine, and Jake's parents, named Michael and Helen, seemed like good people. Christopher was also there with his girlfriend, a woman like 10 years younger than him who wouldn't stop laughing at everything he said. Dinner started well, everyone chatting and getting to know each other, and Helen mentioned how excited they were about the wedding. She said something like, "It's so special when a girl gets married," and her father walks her down the aisle. Those are the moments a mother always remembers. Amanda lit up and said, "Speaking of that, I want to officially announce that my dad, Christopher, is going to walk me down the aisle on my wedding day." Everyone applauded, and Christopher got up to hug Amanda. I sat there, trying to process what I had just heard. Jennifer put her hand on my arm like telling me to calm down. After the applause, Helen looked at me and said something like, "And you've also been so important in Amanda's life. Surely you'll have a special role in the ceremony." I asked Amanda what role I would have, and she got uncomfortable. She said, "Well, I'd be seated in the front row with Jennifer, and maybe I could give a toast at the reception if I wanted." Michael, Jake's dad, tried to lighten the mood by saying toasts were very important, but all I could think about was that I had raised this girl for 10 years, paid for every aspect of her life, and my great honor at her wedding was to sit in the front row and maybe give a speech. I excused myself and went to the bathroom because I needed a moment to not explode right there. When I came back to the table, everyone was talking animatedly about the wedding details. I waited for there to be a pause in the conversation and asked Helen if I could say a few words. Everyone went quiet and looked at me. I stood up, raised my wine glass, and said something like, "I want to make a toast. Amanda and Jake. I wish you the best in your marriage, and Amanda, I hope you have the wedding of your dreams. That said, I want to announce that I'm not going to contribute another cent to this wedding. The deposits I've already made you can keep. Consider it a gift. But from here on out, Christopher, who has the honor of walking his daughter down the aisle, can take care of paying for the rest." Everyone went silent, staring at me like I had said I was going to burn down the church. Amanda was the first to react. She started screaming, how could I do this to her? That I was ruining everything. Jennifer begged me to sit down and stop making a fool of myself. Christopher told me I was resentful and had always been jealous of his relationship with Amanda. I told him he could think whatever he wanted, but if he cared so much about his daughter, he could start acting like a father in all aspects, including financially. Helen tried to mediate, saying we were all upset and should talk calmly, but I had already said what I needed to say. I told Jennifer we were leaving, but she refused, said she would stay with Amanda. I left alone, drove home, and that night I slept better than I had slept in months because I had finally said what I thought. The next day, Jennifer came back to the house furious. She yelled at me for like an hour, saying I had humiliated Amanda in front of Jake's family, that I was a horrible and vindictive man. How could I be so cruel to a girl who had seen me as a father figure? I told her that's precisely why it hurt so much, that Amanda had made it clear I was nothing to her except a walking wallet. Jennifer said I was exaggerating, that Amanda did love me, but it was natural for her to want her biological father in the important moments. I asked her, then why couldn't Christopher pay for the wedding if he was so important? And Jennifer admitted he didn't have money. I told her that wasn't my problem. During the next few days, Amanda tried to call me several times, but I didn't answer. Jennifer begged me to reconsider, said we were going to ruin Amanda's wedding because of my pride. I finally answered a call from Amanda, and she was crying, saying all the vendors were asking for payments and she didn't know what to do. I told her to talk to her dad, Christopher, that surely he would find a way to help her. She told me I knew perfectly well Christopher couldn't pay, and I answered that then maybe they'd have to have a smaller wedding within their budget. She called me selfish and hung up on me. Then I did something that was probably drastic but necessary. I called all the vendors I had hired, the reception venue, the photographer, the DJ, the florist, the catering company, and canceled everything. Some refunded part of the deposit minus a cancellation fee. Others kept the whole deposit, but I didn't care. Then I went to the bank and closed the joint account I had with Jennifer. There was like $15,000 in there that was from my savings, and I transferred it to a new account only in my name. I also canceled all the credit cards that Jennifer and Amanda had access to. Basically, I cut off all financial support overnight. Jennifer found out when she tried to use her card at the supermarket, and it was declined. She came home hysterical, screaming, "How dare I, that this was financial abuse, that she was going to sue me." I told her very calmly that she was a perfectly capable adult who could work, and so was Amanda, and it was time for both of them to start living without depending on me. I gave her 30 days for her and Amanda to find another place to live. Jennifer said it was impossible, that they had no money or job, and I told her, well, maybe Christopher could take them in since he was so important in their lives. She looked at me with hatred and went upstairs furious. That night, Amanda came back to the house and stormed into my room like a hurricane. She yelled at me that I had destroyed her wedding, that all the vendors had canceled, and now they had nothing reserved, 2 months from the date. I told her, feel free to reorganize everything and pay for it herself, or with her father's help. She said, I was a monster, that I had never really loved her, that I only paid for things to feel superior. I told her if that's what she thought, then it was better for both of them to leave my house as soon as possible. She left, crying and slamming doors. Jennifer and Amanda started packing their things immediately. It didn't even take them 2 days, and they had everything ready. Christopher showed up with a borrowed truck to help them move the boxes, and they didn't say a word to me. Amanda took the car I had bought her, and I didn't say anything because technically it was already in her name. Jennifer left the house keys on the kitchen table, and they left. The house was quiet for the first time in 10 years. But the next day, I changed all the locks just in case. About a week later, I got a call from Christopher. He said we needed to talk man to man, and I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop. I thought he was coming to insult me, but surprisingly, he came to ask me for help. He explained that Amanda was devastated, that the wedding was in 6 weeks and they had nothing organized, and if I could reconsider and help, even with half the expenses. I laughed in his face. I told him he had 10 years to be Amanda's father and always chose not to, and now that he had the golden opportunity to prove he cared about his daughter, here he was asking the stepdad, who, according to him, wasn't important for money. He got angry and told me I was spiteful and petty, that I was punishing Amanda for being honest about her feelings. I told him it wasn't punishment, it was simply consequence, and I left the coffee shop. Amanda called me 2 days later. She was calmer but still upset. She told me that because of me, she and Jake would have to postpone the wedding indefinitely because they couldn't afford anything with such short notice. She told me everyone in her family, and Jake's family, thought I was horrible. That Helen had called Jennifer crying, saying she couldn't believe I would do this to them. I asked her if she had ever considered my feelings when she excluded me from everything important in her wedding while using me as an ATM. She said she wasn't excluding me, that I was going to be there, but that it was important to her that her biological father have the main role because he was her real dad. I told her her real dad never paid a cent of child support, never paid for her education, was never at her school plays or graduations, that I was the one who did all that, but apparently that didn't matter. She went quiet and then said it was different, that blood ties meant something. I told her then those blood ties could feed her and give her a roof from now on, and I hung up on her. I received a letter from Jennifer about a month later. It was long, full of emotions, saying Amanda was depressed, barely eating, that she had to go to therapy because the situation was affecting her mentally. It said I was cold-blooded. How could I go on with my normal life, knowing the damage I had caused. It ended saying she would never forgive me for destroying her daughter's happiness. I didn't respond to the letter. What for? There was nothing to say that they would understand or accept. My friend Tyler told me about 2 weeks later that the wedding had been officially canceled. Apparently, Amanda and Jake tried to organize it with a much smaller budget, but couldn't get almost anything they wanted with the money they could pull together between both families. So they decided to cancel and maybe get married at City Hall later. Tyler asked me if I felt bad, and honestly, I told him no. That I felt like I had finally stopped being an idiot who let himself be used. He told me he understood my point of view, but maybe I was too harsh. I told him maybe, but it was already done. Jennifer sent me a text about 2 weeks ago saying she and Amanda were moving to another state to live with Jennifer's sister. She said they had nothing keeping them here and needed a fresh start away from me and this whole situation. I didn't respond. I'm still living in my house. Work is the same. My finances are better than ever because I'm not supporting 2 adult people. And honestly, I sleep well at night. Sometimes I wonder if I was too extreme, if I should have handled things differently. But then I remember how I felt when I saw that wedding announcement without my name. When I found out I couldn't invite my own friends to a wedding I was paying for. When Amanda told me her biological father was going to walk her down the aisle after 10 years of absence. And I think, no, I did the right thing. Or at least the right thing for me. I haven't heard anything from Christopher again. Amanda blocked my number after our last conversations. Jennifer still sends me occasional messages, mainly complaining about how hard her life is now, but I ignore them. My life is simpler now, quieter, and although it sounds cold to say it, it's better, because it turns out being alone is better than being with people who only value you when you're paying the bills.